Friends, it was just announced that Avatar is going to become a land, and it's going to come to Disneyland. And there's only 2 spots that I can think of, and one of them is right over here. Friends, just this week, Disney CEO Bob Iger discussed the $60 billion investment in Disney's theme parks and experiences division at a Morgan Stanley conference where he was trying to wow investors and get them excited about the future. And 1 year ago, when he did this exact same tactic, he teased with everybody that a Avatar experience would be coming to Disneyland. The term experiences had me thinking small and had me thinking of 2 locations: Tomorrowland's broken launch bay or the Hollywood backlot, home of the Avengers Walmart, that had just been cleaned out, where now guests exit through a gift shop of a ride that doesn't yet exist. And then to back up this thought, there was an Avatar experience in an international location that was wrapping up. So it was easy to see a quick win, bring in some stuff, make an exhibit, and then people will come see new Avatar experience. But oh no, the story and the language has changed, and changed in a way where it's got me thinking big. In March 2023, D23 in a post said that the counterpart that would show up at Disneyland would be as amazing as what we see at Disney's Animal Kingdom. An experience wouldn't be as amazing as what's at Animal Kingdom. And now, 1 year later, a new word has shown up, and that word is land. And every Disney fan knows that land has a huge meaning when we look at it in the terms of Disney parks. Fascinating to see exactly. That's loud. And if Disneyland Forward is truly a decade away, as I see it, Disney will need 2 major bridge projects here at the Disneyland Resort. So Avatar happening in the next 3 to 4 years, and then a second major project happening 2 or 3 years after that fills up the decade while they're waiting for Disneyland Forward to take off. Why this is important? They have set unbelievable expectations for not only Disney fans, but Disney investors. If Disney's not doing something, everybody immediately jumps to Disney's dying. There's a reason why Bob keeps making these announcements. It's to keep everybody hanging on the hook and believing that Disney's not over yet. And the fact that Bob Iger keeps leaning specifically on Avatar as Avatar's coming and not mention it as part of Disneyland Forward, definitely, I think, if we're reading the room, is an indication that this is a sooner project versus a later project. And Disneyland Forward is definitely a later project. That would eliminate having Avatar pop out of Disneyland, which it would be interesting if one portal took you over to Pandora, then you go past Hungry Bear and another portal takes you to Galaxy's Edge. Kind of makes sense from a thematic position, but I truly feel that this parking lot is obviously on hold for Disneyland Forward, but they're going to find a way to tether it into the Disneyland Hotel. Therefore, I believe that this is going to be something similar to Fantasy Springs. The recently opened World of Frozen fits in this parcel of land. I did a video about it, but I also think that a little bit more could go in there. My first measurements were a little bit off, to put it politely, because you have to keep in mind that the hotel guest is the most valuable guest. They're spending the most amount of money. This is a family hotel. That is the Fantasy Tower. So something that resembles Fantasyland over here makes more sense to me than Avatar. But also, we're talking about a bridge product that will probably happen in the next few years to patch the gap while Disneyland Forward is being plotted and planned and approved in the background. That means we need to find an existing plot of theme park land. So unfortunately, that would eliminate Sorrowland, You'll Live Another Sad Day, and the Hollywood backlot. And each of these 2 lands, I believe, are tethered into the future of Disneyland Forward, because each of them exist on an outer edge of the park that Disney hopes to blow out in the near future, which means the most troublesome lands will have to wait a little bit longer to get their solution. And I have an entire video about that if you want to watch that in the notes. It appears that Sorrowland will live to fight another sad day of its existence. Oh, so close. And I believe Disneyland only has one spot that is realistic, and that is removing Autopia. Now, before you freak out, hear me out. I do believe that if this were to happen, and I know this is a bit of a stretch, but if this were to happen, the lagoon will stay. Not saying that the subs will stay, but the lagoon will stay, because we need this body of water to create distance and sight lines, and also to create some of the best vibes that Disneyland has to offer. If we were to see Disney build the exact same thing or something similar to what exists at Disney's Animal Kingdom, it does fit on the Autopia parcel of land. This parcel of land does go against the outer edge of Disneyland, therefore the big box that we have to hide could push up against the park's outer borders. Also, when we go over to It's a Small World, over to the old motorboat docks, this could all be covered up with trees, rockwork, and honestly, it's not hard to imagine how to hide such a big show building when we look at the parcel of land that we have. Put some of those floating trees in this lagoon, maybe they get rid of the dock, but all along the exterior line of Autopia, sculpt rockwork, plant trees to hide a massive show building, and already an area that's dense enough to where we can't see inside of it. And then the same as we go along the Matterhorn Trail. It does fit here, and it could be hidden. So now try to imagine this lagoon home to some of those Avatar floating trees, going up, creating beautiful vertical sight lines, but also having water pour back down in to the Disneyland Lagoon. That part has me excited. Also, the fact that Autopia is built up over the top of the submarine showroom. If all of this were to be demoed out, they've already gone below what we perceive as the ground level. So there is sort of a basement-like structure here to take a little bit off the overall height of the massive show building that we see at Animal Kingdom. So it fits there in depth a little bit better than anywhere else. Where this version would have to be different is with all of the beautiful facade being out here in the lagoon, we would have to walk over towards the Tomorrowland train station, where currently Autopia takes you out into the woods and then brings you back in. That area would be all landscaped. That would be the walkway that leads us into our Pandora experiences. Walking up in this direction up here, working our way around the back side of the lagoon, somewhere in there is where our Avatar adventure begins. So out front, big wow show moment. Over towards the train station, that's where we navigate our way to the attraction. It works pretty well here. I'm actually shocked. And don't forget, there was that famous Scott Trowbridge post that he put up where he was talking about Disneyland never completed. He is the head Imagineer that was able to make Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. So in the corporation right now, the closest visionary they have to a Joe Rohde. If anybody was going to fit Avatar into Disneyland and make it look seamless, Scott is the guy. So that post might have been a little bit of foreshadowing for something that he knew was going to come in the next couple of years. But obviously this plan is not perfect because Disneyland is old and Disneyland is beautifully complicated. We have the issue of the monorail track running around this footprint. There is a way to take some of the interior loops of the monorail out and have it just do an outer loop, but does a monorail going around Avatar make sense? I'll let you to decide, because Avatar's make-believe. And the relationship between the Matterhorn and Pandora would be kind of nice. It would take you into a rocky landscape with moving water, lots of trees. It's not such an odd duck here as you might think on somebody just hitting you with this knowledge right off the top. And sort of the best part of this is it puts purpose over to Autopia, where currently Autopia sells little to no merchandise, doesn't sell theme park tickets. Yes, I know it's one of the opening day attractions, but not this version of Autopia. So Walt Disney Imagineering could put more attractions into Disneyland, but not touch all of Tomorrowland, holding on to the main parcel of Tomorrowland for a bigger move once Disneyland Forward gets approved, and then they know what their access is blowing out the eastern end of the park where the buses load and unload. You can watch that in my Disneyland Forward series. So now that maybe I got you all hyped up on it happening over at Disneyland in the Autopia area, ultimately I believe it's DCA, where we'll see the Avatar experience land at the Disneyland Resort. It just makes so much more sense how this park is designed and what this park's short-term needs are if a bridge product was to show up at the Disneyland Resort. And if you recall, it was leaked that this attraction was gonna come to DCA. And then Disney said, nah dog, that's not happening. But many times we see corporations accidentally leak a bit of information, deny it, and then go, I was just messing with you, it is happening after all. So Disney officially saying it's not happening in DCA means zero to me, because they also didn't confirm that it was happening at Disneyland. I think somebody somewhere just made a slip up and they're just trying to cover it up because they really need this news to pop when they make the announcement. Now, if Disney's goal is to increase capacity and attendance, this looks like a good place to start, because I was just in Disneyland and it was slammed, and DCA, not the same, because this park really only has 4 major e-tickets, and only 2 of those cater to the thrill-seeking community. So if there ever was a park that needed a little bit more Disney, it would be this one. You see how lonely it is here on this path? This is what it feels like when you don't subscribe to Hey Brickey. Make sure you subscribe, join the channel today. Let's keep going on these adventures together. I'm so thankful that you showed up, and I can't wait to do it again with you. Now back to today's video on where Pandora would go at Disneyland Resort. So if you're like me and you're curious why exactly Avatar and not the very highly anticipated new attraction, the e-ticket attraction for Avengers Campus, it's pretty simple math. Pandora's done, Pandora's already a proven winner. Pandora brings in a different audience. This technology hasn't been figured out, the ride's not planned, and it brings more of the same to the Disneyland Resort. An Avatar attraction diversifies the product offering and gives them a whole new talking point to brag about in these Morgan Stanley meetings. When Iger discussed the investment strategy, they want to put 70% of this investment into the parks into raising capacity. So, putting 2 attractions that have been proven to be extremely popular where 1 seasonal attraction sits at DCA solves a lot of those problems. For many times of the year, Grizzly River Run doesn't have a huge draw, but both of the Pandora attractions out at Disney's Animal Kingdom are consistently racked out with high wait times every single day of the year. And then there's the IP discussion. Grizzly River Run has no Disney intellectual property tethered to it. It sells no merchandise, it sells no theme park tickets, it doesn't bring new fans to Disney. But Avatar, one of the greatest selling movies of all time, clearly has a fan base somewhere. And putting Avatar at DCA would even the scales a little bit more between DCA and Disneyland. It would sell a ton of merchandise, and it would bring new people back to the resort, if anything, on a curiosity factor. Putting 2 epically popular attractions where 1 seasonal attraction sits is fully in line with their 70% that they're spending on raising their capacity. They want more fans in the park spending more money. Pandora does that, where Grizzly River Run, sadly, cannot. According to Google Maps, and doing my best job measuring as possible, it does appear that it would fit here. Taking the showroom, backing it all the way up to the performance corridor, some rock work here will probably have to get re-sculpted and rethought out, but it doesn't seem totally impossible to hide this massive show building when we think about covering it with rock work, lots of trees, and basically making it look similar to what it is right now, just moving the pieces around a bit for a different level of camouflage to hide a massive show building. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy or cheap, but it is possible. And then here in the front of this footprint, you wouldn't have quite the same size of an adventurous trail. And then once again, I know that Disneyland wants to create a nice amount of space between hotel guests and theme park guests, but even if they were just to push the walking path back 10, 15 feet, it would give them more room to do whatever they want, because there is a generous amount of space here and all along the creek bed that separates the Grand Californian from the edge of DCA. Especially if the Redwood Challenge Trail and this little plot of land over by the hotels is massaged to make a wider walkway. It still fits in with the wooded environment. It doesn't clash too hard with the hotel. And let's be honest, they're getting away from the California theme as quickly as possible. And once again, Grizzly River Run is submerged below what we perceive as the ground level. So I think this area right here illustrates just how lower this attraction is to what we perceive as the walking level of DCA. So putting a giant building in the back corner here, we already have the height working for us. It would be interesting to see though, do we slowly stair step down and go into an explorative area to go down lower, to go into the attractions, which then would only create more height for the rock facade in front of us and wherever they would put a lagoon with some of those floating trees. Be a little bit tighter, but I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. The difference between Animal Kingdom and DCA, you just wouldn't have as much out front. But tight walkways, tighter pathways, that's nothing shocking to Disneyland Resort fans who we know we're stuck in the middle of a city around us and not in the middle of a giant bubble like what exists out at Walt Disney World. If it had to go anywhere at DCA and we're not expanding the footprint of the park, tell me a place that it fits, tell me a place where it would better go than right where I'm standing. But not gonna say that I'm thrilled about it. What I want to happen and what I think will happen, those are usually two very different things. So now that I've broken down how this would work, let me share with you what my thoughts are. I don't like Avatar. I think both of these attractions are just meh, and I would honestly prefer for this not to come to Disneyland. I do think that it would be beautiful. I do think that it would add nice vibes, but it's not for me. But then again, I also don't religiously ride Autopia, and I've never rode Grizzly River Run because I don't want wet socks, wet shoes, and I don't want to chafe. Call me crazy. That's not my idea of theme park fun. So I guess in that regard, now that I say it out loud, it technically would be an upgrade for me because it would be adding new vibes and getting rid of possibly two different areas that I don't use and I don't think most folks do either. But the fascinating thing to me about Avatar is it doesn't seem to have the culture behind it, like Disney, Star Wars, Avengers, princesses, but somebody somewhere is buying these tickets. As long as it doesn't take out the monorail, then I can make peace with it. It just honestly doesn't feel very Disney to me. And even though I will cover it and try to get into it as much as possible, if I'm being completely honest, I would just prefer that it doesn't come to Disneyland. It's fine for Animal Kingdom and it has a huge demand there, but Animal Kingdom is also a very, very bizarre Disney park, one that's short on attractions, and so really anything that they would put in Animal Kingdom would pop. Maybe not as hard as Avatar, but it would pop. But I would love to see something else come in these spaces. Pandora does not have my excitement, and I don't really see a lot of people that are excited about it, even though somehow this franchise sells a ton of movie tickets, sells a ton of theme park tickets out east. It just doesn't seem to have a culture behind it. And that worries me for the long term of Disneyland. But friends, if Disney truly wants a quick win, watch this video right here where I explain to you how Cosmic Rewind could come to the Disneyland Resort and how it would make the perfect King Thanos attraction. Make sure you watch this video for more Disneyland fun. Brickey here, thank you so much for trying to figure out with me where Avatar will go when it finds its way to the Disneyland Resort.